Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are jumping right into a conflict, really a philosophical war that's shaking up Silicon Valley.
And it's being led by one of the biggest names out there.
Absolutely. We're talking about Turing Award winner Jan LeCun. He recently, very publicly, declared that the industry's entire focus on scaling up large language models, this whole chase for AGI,
Yeah.
is utter nonsense.
Right, and this isn't some critic on the outside. This is the guy who was Meta's chief AI scientist for a decade. He's 65, and instead of retiring, he leaves to start his own company, AMI.
Advanced Machine Intelligence.
Exactly. And his whole purpose is to pursue this completely different path he calls the world model approach.
So why leave Meta? I mean, the resources there are practically infinite. Why abandon the battleship right when the LLM fleet seems to be winning?
Well, he says it's because the culture fundamentally shifted. This AI gold rush, it's forcing everyone, even the giant labs, into closed short-term product development.
And that starves the real foundational research.
It starves it completely. So AMI is his way of protecting that long-term, open public research. It's a direct challenge to the whole closed box direction the industry is heading.
Okay, so let's break down that challenge. He calls the current approach a dangerous technical monoculture. Everyone is just scaling up LLM size, data, and compute.
And optimizing it with RLHF, reinforcement learning from human feedback.
So why is that a dead end?
Because LeCun's core argument is that LLMs are not cognition, they're memory.
Just memory.
Fundamentally, they're systems that just retrieve and rearrange facts from these massive, massive data sets. We're talking, what, 10 to the 14th power bytes of text?
And they spit it out as fluent prose, but there's no understanding.
None. Because text is, well, it's low redundancy. It just doesn't have the structural information of reality baked into it.
Here's the stat from the sources that just blew my mind. That gargantuan amount of text, basically the whole written internet, it's structurally equivalent to only about 1,500 hours of video.
It's wild, right?
Yeah.
And to put that in perspective for you, 1,500 hours is roughly the visual input a 4-year-old child gets.
Just in their waking hours.
Right. LLMs are trained on text, so they're basically blind to the real world, the messy, high-dimensional, noisy data of physics and perception. They can't plan because they essentially skip the class on how reality works.
So if AGI is nonsense, he's setting this other bar, something much lower, but maybe harder to clear, achieving dog-level intelligence.
He says we're missing the point. A dog has a predictive world model. It understands that things fall, that objects don't just vanish.
It can plan.
A dog can plan a sequence of actions. LLMs simply cannot do that.
Right.
That is the missing piece of the puzzle.
So let's talk about that alternative, the world model. When I hear that, I picture this, impossibly detailed, pixel-perfect, a simulation of reality, a holodeck.
And he says that's completely wrong. It is absolutely not a holodeck. A world model filters out all the unpredictable noise-like, simulating every single air molecule.
Oh.
Instead, it models only what's relevant to the task, and it does it in an abstract representation space.
So think about predicting the weather using variables like temperature and pressure, not by tracking every single water droplet.
Ah, so that's how you get a machine to predict consequences instead of just predicting the next word. What's the tech behind that?
They're focused on something called JIPA, the Joint Embedding Predictive Architecture.
Okay.
The key idea is to just abandon prediction at the low level, so no more guessing the next pixel or the next word. Instead, you force the model to make predictions only within that abstract space.
It forces it to learn the deeper dynamics of the world.
Exactly. It focuses on the physics, not the surface-level patterns.
This shift feels like it has huge implications for safety. The whole conversation around LLMs is about, content filters and alignment. LeCun seems to think that's backwards.
Completely. He says safety needs to be engineered into the architecture from the start. You don't just slap on these computationally expensive filters after the fact.
You build it in. You build it in. The goal-driven system has rigid, explicit constraints from day one. For a home robot, that might be never ever harm a human. Safety becomes part of its core objective, not an afterthought.
And what about the timeline? He seems cautious. He gives this huge range from 5 to maybe 20 years just to get to dog level.
Well, he's realistic about unforeseen technical roadblocks. But here's the really interesting part of his argument.
Go on.
He thinks the jump from our current AI to dog level is actually harder than the next jump from dog level to human level.
How does that work?
Because once a machine can actually predict and plan in the physical world, once it has that world model, the rest of the problem, which is mostly language and cultural knowledge, is a much smaller leap. LLMs are already pretty good at that part.
So this really is a declaration of war on the established path. It's the data and compute race versus this perception-first approach.
A complete fork in the road for AI development.
It leaves us with a fascinating thought. If intelligence's true core is predicting the consequences of your own actions, a skill machines currently lack. What real-world applications, beyond just talking, finally become possible once a machine gets as smart as a clever dog?
Something to chew on.
Thanks for diving in with us.